I'm going to tell you today exactly how I got my full UK motorbike A license in just 7 days, how much it costs, and how you can do exactly the same for yourself. Now, there are 4 tests you need to do in order to go from absolutely zero experience to getting fully qualified. And in theory, you can do all 4 of these tests in a 7-day period. However, that doesn't give you much flexibility in case you fail. And so I do recommend spreading out this process over multiple weeks. That way you give yourself enough time to retake so you don't lose money if you end up having any absolute howlers in some of the tests. But there is one big major caveat if you want to try and embark on getting your motorbike license, your full license, in just a 7-day period, which is that I already have 10 years driving experience on UK roads, which came in extremely handy in order to get this knocked out the park. So I would strongly recommend that you have been driving for an extended period of time before trying to take on the full bike license. And the second caveat is to know your way around a motorbike, so to get some kind of riding experience, however that looks like for you, so that you're not just going in blind and not knowing the basics of how to operate a motorbike. The way that I did this was getting some experience in some less developed countries with less strict laws. Some good examples of areas where you could do this are Sub-Saharan Africa or Southeast Asia. And so I had about 30 hours of bike experience on Honda CRF 250cc bikes going into this. And I took my test with someone who was a casual motocross enthusiast, and so he had some off-road experience from that. You know, any way that you can understand where everything is on a bike and get some experience riding at slow speed, understanding clutch control, operating the brakes, those kinds of things are going to be necessary if you want to try and get this knocked out the park without failing. Now let's get into it. These are the 4 tests, and the first one is called your CBT. You might have heard of this, your compulsory basic training it stands for. Now you can't fail this test, so it's maybe not fair of me to call it a test, and it only takes about half a day. What you do is you rock up, it costs around £150 depending on how you do it, and you get shown your way around the bike. Like I said, it's better that you already know this before you go into it, but you'll get shown where everything is, how to operate it. It will be all off-road initially, where you're just doing figures of 8, some slow speed riding, that kind of thing. And like I said, you can't fail. So if you put your foot down, you stall, you mess up, it's not an issue. The instructor will just coach you through it until you get to the point where you can do it. It's very rare that you fail. You can just take a bit longer in order to get on with it and make sure your skills are correct. And then after that, the second part of the CBT is you go out onto the road and you deal with some basic junctions and you go through the gears a little bit, maybe, I can't remember exactly, it was about up to 3rd gear or something, on some 30-mile-an-hour roads, and just prove that you've got some basic bike control and you know what you're doing at the end of the day. Then that is a big green tick. Once you've got your CBT, that allows you, that's one of the 2 things you need to allow you to take your full test. Now, the second thing you need to do in order to take your full test is to do your motorbike theory test. Now, this is very similar to your car theory test, which if you had been driving like I recommended, you may have done when you were a little bit younger. This theory test costs £23-ish, I believe, and is very simple. If you've passed your car test and you have got some driving experience, there's 2 parts to it. There's 50 questions, multiple choice, and then you've got your hazard perception as well. My best recommendation for preparing for the theory and the hazard perception is do practice papers. There's some great resources online where you can I think I paid around £20 for all of the past papers and then all of the practice questions for all the different sections that they can possibly ask you on. And so I did all of the individual topics, and then I went and did past papers until I passed, 3 past papers in a row. Because if you pass 2 or 3 in a row, you're pretty much good to go on the day. Now we're coming on to the more difficult section, which are referred to as your Mod 1 and your Mod 2. Now these are the 2 tests that you take on your unrestricted bike if you want an unrestricted license. So I did my CBT on a 125cc little bike, and then I did my test on a 650cc bike. I think you have to do it on at least a 650 in order to qualify for that full license. So I knew my way around a bike, and I thought that this 5-day crash course was going to be the perfect amount for me. So we've already spent 2 days, 1 day doing our driving theory and then 1 day doing our CBT, and then the remaining 5 days of the 7 that I told you about at the start of this video are this crash course, including the tests, in order to get you fully qualified. What this looked like was, of the 5-day course, day 1 and 2 is riding and practicing a combination of off-road and then some time on the road. Day 3, I took my Mod 1 test, which I'll talk to you a bit more about in a second. Day 4 was then a bit more practicing, all entirely on the road, and then day 5 was my Mod 2 test. Now this 5-day course obviously varies depending on your instructor, where you are in the country, and how much they charge. But mine, now I just checked the website, is £940 it would cost. So you're looking at just over £1,000 all in to get everything you need in order to get sorted. And the reason that I paid this amount is because I don't own a motorbike. I don't have access to a motorbike. I don't have access to any private land. So I couldn't do any practicing on my own, and so that £940 essentially was everything I needed in terms of boot hire, helmet hire, glove hire, jacket hire, bike hire, fuel, all included. Get driven to the test, or you ride yourself to the test site, you use that bike for the test. So made it far easier because that was all inclusive. Now you have to pass your Mod 1 test if you want to go on to do your Mod 2 test. The Mod 1 test takes place entirely in a car park, and it is a combination of bike handling, walking next to your bike and handling it and maneuvering it correctly, riding at slow speeds intricately between cones, etc., and also some high-speed riding, some high-speed swerving, some emergency stops, those types of things. It takes place entirely in a car park. It's fairly stressful, fairly difficult. You can't put your foot down at any point unless the instructor tells you, and you have to do exactly everything by the book. It's like a rehearsal, like a rehearsed practice that you'll do in your first 2 training days in order to get you prepared, so you know exactly what you need to do, what the circuit looks like, and you just have to go through the motions and not make any mistakes. It's all about your bike handling essentially. And in my first 2 days in that crash course, we did a combination of preparing directly for that test, but also some on-road riding up to 70 miles an hour on a combination of roads, different junctions, complicated roads, roundabouts, those types of things, because that is what you need in order to succeed in your Mod 2, which is entirely on the road. This is like when you take your car test and you're driving around with an instructor in the car with you. It's exactly the same on a bike, except you have an earpiece and an instructor behind you on a bike, and he's directing you on where to go and what to do, and you have to drive around unaided for, I think it's around 45 minutes to an hour, and taking on various obstacles around the roads. And if you make any serious mistakes, obviously that is you failing. And that is the one that I was most nervous for, because it is very easy to mess up. You're obviously in an entropic environment with loads of other riders and drivers, and so you're at the mercy of if they make a mistake, and you have to react, constantly changing rules, changing speed limits, changing junctions. So yeah, very easy to fail this one. So what I really liked about my instructor, I did it with a guy named Adrian at Aylesbury Motorcycle Training, I think was the name of the company, and he was a real hard ass, which was annoying when we were training because he was constantly in my ear. If I was driving 27 miles an hour in a 30, he'd be telling me I was too slow, and if I was driving 31 miles an hour, he'd be telling me I'm too fast. So really badgering me and hammering me. And it was the day before the test, he turned around to me and he was like, listen, the reason for that is train hard, fight easy. If I'm constantly making you on your toes when we are preparing and you're at the top of your game, it means that when you come to do the test, things are going to flow a lot more simply. So even though I was frustrated at him having a go at me for everything, even if I made something slightly wrong, if I left my indicator on for a second and a half too long, it'd be straight in my ear. That was useful, and it's what you need to not make any silly mistakes. So I did end up passing my Mod 2 first time as well, and the guy that I took on this entire journey with, so we did our 5-day crash course together, as I mentioned, he had some motocross experience. I'll tell you a couple of the ways that he failed, and one way that I nearly failed, because this just gives you an idea of how difficult it is, and you can just fail on the simplest things. So imagine you're coming up to a roundabout and there's 2 lanes and you're in the left-hand lane and there's a car in the right-hand lane. So we're obviously on a bike in this scenario. He pulls up to the roundabout, there's a car on his right-hand side in that second lane, and the roundabout's busy, car's on it, there's a gap, and that car on his right-hand side enters into the roundabout and then performs his maneuver. This guy decided not to go as that car was entering the roundabout, and if you've passed your driving test, you'll know that this car acts as a blocker, because if he can go on your right hand side, then you can also go. He failed and got a major because of undue hesitation in that scenario. So you really do have to be on it and make sure you don't make mistakes like that. Another way in which he failed, he got another major in the same test, and this was, he was told by the instructor to pull over when he was ready somewhere on the left hand side. And so he's driving along this main road and told to pull over somewhere on the left hand side. So he whacks on his indicator, drives a little bit further, and then pulls over on the left hand side. And he got a major fail for that as well. Reason being, he pulled on his indicator just before another junction where he could have turned off, drove or rode past that junction and then pulled over on the left hand side. So because he indicated left before the junction, indicating that he would pull off into that one, he failed for false indication, or whatever the technical term is. One way that I nearly failed was we were entering, I don't know the roads very well at all that we were operating on, and we entered this housing estate, and the speed limit seemed to change from like a 30 to a 50. I did this test a year ago, so I don't remember the exact numbers, but we were definitely in a 30 before. I enter a roundabout, I leave the roundabout, and this road is like beautiful, nice and open, no street lights. I'm like, surely this is a 50 or at least a 40. So I throttle on a little bit, and I'm watching the instructor behind me. He's about 5 meters, maybe 10 meters behind me when I put the throttle on, because I don't want to be failed for going 30 and a 50, for example. And there's no signs, so I didn't know what to do. So I put the throttle on a bit, went up to like 42, 43, 44 mile an hour, and I see I've absolutely dropped the instructor. He's now like 30, 40 meters behind me. So I think, okay, surely this is definitely a 30, then it's not whatever I thought it was. So then I dropped back down, and yeah, seemed to be at the right speed. And then when we pulled into the place at the end, when he told me that I'd passed, he said, yeah, I gave you a minor for being a bit throttle happy there, because you clearly were a bit too happy on the throttle. Obviously I didn't want to say, oh, I thought it was a 50, so because then he would have been like, oh, you thought it was a 50, fail. So I just was like, yeah, just wasn't looking, and then I slowed back down, and he was like, yeah, no problem. That is your process, really, plain and simple. If you are new to this channel, I'm a full-time adventurer, so just doing adventurous, difficult and challenging things all over the world. And so the reason that I wanted to get this bike license is not because I ride in the UK. I actually haven't ridden in the UK since getting this license, is because I want to continue to ride in more exciting countries around the world, and also I've got some exciting rides planned in the UK at some point when I get round to them. So that's my story, that's why I wanted it, and it's extremely freeing. No matter what environment you're in or country you're in, the feeling of riding a bike is just driving a really nice car is unparalleled. I've driven some pretty impressive sports cars and borderline supercars at this point, and also ridden bikes, and I'd choose a 650cc Kawasaki on a beautiful road every day in some nice weather every day of the week over a convertible or some other sports car. So yeah, you'll know when you try it. Maybe you've already got this license and you're just obsessed with bikes and wanted to watch a video on some idiot telling you how to get your license in 10 days. So hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Please check out my other stuff, because it's pretty interesting, if I say so myself. And all the best on your endeavours.
Oh, you want me to say that?
You have to.
Oh, I have to. Like and subscribe.
No, say it with conviction and look at
Please like and subscribe. Adam Radcliffe at YouTube.